In recent times, something deeply troubling has been happening in the Catholic Church. Across many dioceses, faithful Catholics who attend the traditional Latin Mass are facing restrictions, closures, and growing uncertainty. These communities are not small or distant. They are full of life, full of families, full of faith. They are being pushed aside not because they did anything wrong, but simply because they are attached to a form of the liturgy that has existed for centuries. This is not just a local issue. From Detroit to Tulsa and beyond, the situation has become serious. What once seemed like scattered decisions are now beginning to look like a clear pattern. The people who attend the Latin Mass, who have made it part of their daily and weekly lives, are being told quietly, but clearly, that there is no longer room for them. And this is why many are now looking to the Pope, the shepherd of the whole Church, and asking him to speak. They are not demanding power. They are not making threats. They are simply asking for a word, a sign, a reassurance that they still belong. In Detroit, 10 parishes that had long offered the Latin Mass under the 1962 missal were recently told they could no longer do so. These weren't failing parishes. These were vibrant communities, full of families, full of young people, full of deep devotion. In many cases, these masses were the heart of the parish. They gave structure and meaning to people's lives. They taught them the faith, shaped their prayer, and brought them together. And now suddenly, these masses are being taken away. The reason given that they must be limited or moved. In some cases, the diocese has said the celebrations can continue, but only at distant locations, far from the original parishes. That may sound like a small thing, but for families who live nearby, who have children, who built their lives around these local parishes, it feels like an exile. It feels like being told, you can still worship this way, but not here, and not with the community you built. In Tulsa, a similar situation has unfolded. The Latin Mass had been celebrated for years at the parish of Saints Peter and Paul. Then, without warning, it was stopped. No detailed explanation was given. Parishioners were simply told that there were logistical difficulties and not enough priests, but the people knew this wasn't the full story. The new parish priest had celebrated the Latin Mass before, understood it, he respected it, but he made it clear, this was not his decision. It had come from higher up. There was nothing he could do. What hurts the faithful most is not just the decision itself, it's the way it's being done, quietly, without discussion, without transparency. Even respectful questions in church groups or parish social media pages are being deleted. People are left confused. They don't know why the Mass they've attended for years has been removed. They don't know what changed. They don't understand what they are being accused of. And so, across the church, people are beginning to notice a pattern. In some places, like Charlotte, permissions are being extended, and there is an effort to include Latin Mass communities with care. But in many other dioceses, the direction is the opposite. More restrictions, more closures, more letters sent. 2 priests telling them to stop. It's more pressure to remove altars, to avoid facing east during Mass, to avoid using Latin, to follow strict rules that leave no space for tradition. It is becoming harder and harder to say that these are just local decisions. A larger trend is clearly emerging. The rules from Traditionis Custodes, the Vatican document that aimed to regulate the Latin Mass, are being applied more and more strictly. The way they are being applied is causing real pain. The faithful who attend the Latin Mass are not trying to divide the Church. In fact, they often go to great lengths to remain obedient, respectful, and peaceful. Many drive long distances just to find a Latin Mass. They rearrange their schedules, educate their children in the faith, and participate deeply in parish life. They are not rebels. They are some of the most committed Catholics you will ever meet. But now, they are being treated as if their love for the ancient liturgy is somehow dangerous. Some bishops are trying to find gentle, temporary solutions. They don't want to uproot what has taken years of effort and sacrifice to grow, but in many places, the tone is different. It's colder, less pastoral, more forceful. The letters being sent to pastors are clear. Reduce the Latin Mass, cancel the Masses, make changes to the liturgy, or face consequences. It feels less like a dialogue and more like a shutdown. This is why the silence from the Vatican is becoming harder to understand. For a while, many thought it was just caution or waiting to see how things developed. But now the pattern is too strong to ignore, when entire communities are being told to move, change, or disappear, when even asking questions is not allowed, people begin to feel abandoned. This silence is not just frustrating, it is damaging. It creates a vacuum where confusion and mistrust can grow. It leaves faithful Catholics wondering, is there still a place for us in the church? Are we still seen, still loved, still welcomed? These are not small questions. They go to the heart of people's identity, their spiritual life, their trust. In the church as a mother, some may ask, why does this matter so much? Isn't this just one form of the Mass among others? The answer is simple. The Latin Mass is not just about Latin. It is about a way of worship that centers on reverence, silence, beauty, mystery. It draws people into the sacred. It has shaped saints, communities, families, and vocations. It is a spiritual home for many. To lose it suddenly, or to see it reduced without reason, feels like losing something holy and irreplaceable. The changes also go beyond the Latin Mass. In many places, even in the ordinary form of the Mass, restrictions are being added. Priests are being told they cannot face east during the Eucharistic prayer. Churches are being forced to remove or change their altars. Guidelines are being given that seem more interested in controlling appearance than in encouraging worship. It feels like a push toward uniformity, but sameness, and it comes at the cost of beauty and tradition. People are not asking for everything to go back to the way it was. They are asking for space, for understanding, for peace. They are asking for leadership that listens, that supports, that explains. Most of all, they are asking for the Pope to speak, to make it clear that there is still room in the Church for those who love the liturgy of the past, to confirm that tradition is not a threat but a gift. And there are leaders who have spoken up. Cardinals like Sarah and Burke, bishops like Athanasius, Schneider. They have said clearly, tradition must be protected. Liturgical beauty must be preserved. The Church must not turn against her own roots. But words are no longer enough. People need action. They need decisions. They need clarity. What is most needed now is a voice from the center, a voice that says to the faithful, you are not forgotten. You are not a problem. You are part of the Church. You have a home. Without that voice, the risk grows not of rebellion, but of sadness, of disappointment, of quiet division that weakens the Church from within. The faithful are not going anywhere. They are not leaving. They are staying because they believe, they love, and they hope. But hope needs light. It needs truth. And it needs to know that the Church's motherhood is not reserved for a few, but offered to all. The time for waiting has passed. Now is the time for choices. The Church must not give the impression that tradition is something to be hidden or feared. The Church must show that she remembers where she came from, and that she can carry forward her full richness without cutting away her own roots. What is at stake is not just a form of Mass. It is trust. Trust in the Church's leadership. In her care, trust that the beauty of the faith will not be lost to pressure or politics. The faithful are asking for a sign, a word, a gesture of love from the Pope, a word that says, you belong, you matter, you are part of us. May that word come soon, and may it bring peace, unity, and hope to all who are waiting.